They're trying to keep up with major policy changes, economic shifts, always searching for that clear signal, right? In all the noise. Well, today on the Deep Dive, we're cutting straight to the core of India's vehicle scrappage policy, giving you the essential insights without the overwhelm. Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into India's vehicle scrappage policy today, and believe me, it's much more than just getting old cars off the streets. It's really a fascinating look into how a country tackles huge environmental issues while also, trying to fuel its economy and industry. Because vehicular emissions, they're a massive problem for air quality in India. We're talking older vehicles putting out maybe 10 to 25 times more pollutants than newer ones. It's staggering. In fact, the Center for Study of Science, Technology, and Policy, CSTEP, they projected that air pollution in a city like Bengaluru, it could jump by up to 74% by 2030 if things don't change. So to help us navigate this, we're drawing on a pretty comprehensive PhD thesis. It's titled Impact of Vehicle Scrappage Policy on Indian Automotive Industry, a Management Analysis.
It's by Prof. Sharanabasavareddy from Chaudhry Charan Singh University, Meerut, and it's dated 2025. Our mission for you listening is to get past those headlines. We want to really understand the environmental side, sure, but also the economic and industrial effects, and importantly, the challenges this policy is up against. This isn't just about emissions, it touches on circular economies, industrial growth, public awareness, a whole ecosystem.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how comprehensive it tries to be, especially with the government adopting this polluter pays idea. They've brought in a green tax. This is on vehicles older than 15 years, right? And it applies even if they manage to pass their fitness and emission tests.
Okay, so age is the key factor there.
Exactly. And this tax, it's not small. It's around 50% of the road tax, valid for 5 years, and it can vary state by state. So for owners who maybe don't want to renew under those conditions, well, the policy really pushes them towards voluntary scrapping. They encourage using these authorized facilities, and they offer quite a few financial incentives to sweeten the deal.
Right. Incentives are key. What kind of things make it genuinely appealing? Or are there maybe still sticking points for people?
Well, the policy does lay out some pretty decent benefits on paper. You get a scrappage certificate, potentially significant road tax concessions, maybe waivers on registration fees if you buy a new vehicle.
Ah, okay. So pushing towards newer cars?
It's a very clear strategic push, yes, towards modern, greener options. And, beyond just these direct financial bits, the scrappage policy is actually one of 3 main strategies India's using against environmental damage.
3 strategies. What are the others?
The other 2 are, well, the big push for electric vehicles, EVs, and also implementing stricter BS6 emission standards. Now, EVs obviously offer lower running costs and fewer emissions, but the thesis points out that India can't just rely on EVs alone, not right now anyway, especially given how urgent the pollution problem is, and also thinking about the slump in car sales after COVID. The scrappage policy is kind of designed to be a more immediate, perhaps more scalable solution in the short to medium term.
That makes sense. So it's clear this isn't just about cleaning up the air, as important as that is. What are the bigger economic, maybe industrial goals the government's aiming for with this?
Yeah, if you zoom out a bit, this policy is actually a crucial piece supporting India's ambition to become a global hub for steel manufacturing.
Steel. Interesting connection.
It is. India is already the world's 2nd largest steel producer, outputs around 110 million tons. But the national goal is to ramp that up to a massive 300 million tons by 2030.
Wow, that's nearly triple.
Exactly. And a really significant part of that plan involves using recycled materials, specifically recycled materials from these scrapped vehicles.
I mean, so these end-of-life vehicles, ELVs I think they're called, they're seen as a resource, not just waste.
Precisely. ELVs contain incredibly valuable secondary raw materials. Things like steel, obviously, but also aluminum, lead, zinc, nickel, rubber, glass, fiber, plastic.
Whole shopping list.
Pretty much. And these aren't just for steel, Many of them are actually critical for manufacturing EVs themselves.
Ah, so it closes the loop, in a way.
It essentially creates a kind of neat circular loop, yes. The policy also aims to formalize the whole vehicle dismantling sector, so authorizing only those scrappers who follow environmentally sound procedures.
That sounds important, formalizing it.
Very. And for the individual owner, the benefits we mentioned earlier get more specific. They can get about 5% of their vehicle's value as compensation when they scrap it. Then there's that potential 25% rebate on road tax for their next vehicle purchase, and the waiver of registration fees for the new vehicle, too.
Okay, those numbers sound pretty attractive on paper. But what about the practical side? What are the challenges in actually making this happen smoothly on the ground?
Well, this raises a really important point. Despite these clear incentives that you just laid out, the source material, the thesis, points out that public awareness about the policy, it's still surprisingly low.
Really? Even with those benefits?
Seems so, which means it's absolutely essential for the government not just to make the scrapping process itself easier, but also to launch much more targeted and effective awareness campaigns. Just
Yeah.
making sure people understand the benefits and, crucially, how to actually participate.
Public awareness is one major hurdle then. But what about the industry itself? The research seems to uncover some pretty big blind spots there too, doesn't it? It's not just about the policy existing, but how companies, actually deal with it.
That's exactly right. While quite a bit of research has looked at, say, the environmental side or consumer willingness, there's been a noticeable gap in understanding the specific management strategies within the automotive industry.
Like what specifically?
Well, for instance, questions like how original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, how are they adjusting their production forecasts based on this? Or how are dealerships getting ready to actually offer these scrappage-linked services? That hasn't really been explored in depth. And what's also missing is hard data. Concrete numbers showing exactly how this policy impacts things like, say, production volumes or profitability for the businesses involved.
Right. Without that data, it's tough to plan.
Exactly. It makes it very difficult for companies to plan effectively, and frankly, it hinders the policy from reaching its full potential.
So it really is about connecting those dots, isn't it? Between the big policy vision and the kind of day-to-day operational changes needed from everyone, manufacturers, suppliers, dealerships. The problem statement in this thesis really seems to zero in on those knowledge gaps, especially, like you said, public participation, but also the lack of solid data-driven guidance for OEMs and dealerships on how to adapt strategically.
Precisely. And another key point highlighted is that while getting good resource recovery and recycling from ELVs is possible, simply recovering the materials doesn't automatically mean those resources will be recycled again into new products down the line.
Okay, so recovery isn't the end of the story.
Not necessarily. It really underlines how crucial it is to have robust, formal dismantling operations. Operations with high capacity, maybe more vertical integration among car manufacturers, sophisticated ELV management systems. And all of this needs to be supported by the right legal frameworks. Just, penalizing companies if they don't recycle isn't really enough to make the whole system self-sustaining and truly effective in the long run.
So it needs more proactive support.
Yes, there needs to be broad, coordinated support from the government, from various stakeholders to really make this policy work as intended. This study, the thesis we're drawing from, specifically aims to tackle these gaps, from checking public awareness levels to analyzing how the policy actually influences strategic decisions by OEMs and suppliers, and even trying to quantify its impact on things like production volumes and profitability.
Right, getting everyone aligned, basically, from the car owner right up to the biggest manufacturers, and making sure the infrastructure and the incentives actually create that sustainable loop you mentioned. Well, our deep dive today into India's vehicle scrappage policy. It's really been quite a journey. We've seen this blend of ambitious environmental targets mixed with some sharp economic and industrial goals. We started with how older vehicles are a major source of pollution, making this policy feel pretty urgent. But we also uncovered some, frankly, surprising facts along the way, like how these end-of-life vehicles are actually seen as a critical resource, contributing to India's huge steel production ambitions and providing essential secondary raw materials for making EVs. And while the policy itself looks comprehensive, offering those significant incentives and aiming to formalize the dismantling sector, we've also had to highlight the very real hurdles identified in the research. Things like that, persistently low public awareness, the critical need for more government funding, and perhaps surprisingly, the lack of sufficient strategic adaptation and actionable data for OEMs and dealerships.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the policy's full potential isn't just held back by, say, implementation issues. It's also hindered by these critical information gaps, especially around understanding public participation and how key industry players like OEMs and dealerships are actually adapting strategically or maybe not adapting enough. And the nuance here is quite important, I think. Good resource recovery and recycling from ELVs, that's great, but it doesn't automatically guarantee those recovered resources will be recycled again.
Right, closing that loop fully.
Exactly. It just underscores this ongoing need for really robust, formal dismantling operations and properly integrated management systems to make sure that loop is effectively closed. This raises an important question, maybe for you, the listener, to think about. Consider how a policy like this, designed initially to tackle a clear environmental issue like air pollution, how it actually becomes this really complex ecosystem, involving public behavior, industrial strategy, even global economic ambitions. So the question is, how might other countries, perhaps grappling with similar environmental and industrial challenges, learn from India's experience here, particularly when it comes to striking that crucial balance between policy incentives, effective public awareness campaigns, and getting that dedicated stakeholder support needed to make such a complex policy truly successful?